Okay, today's shir is Avraham's Shalom Aleichem. Avraham's dilemma, the mitzvah of Kibbutz versus Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. That's the dilemma that I went through. I had parents in New York, and should I leave them and make Aliya? Which mitzvah is greater, Yishuv Eretz Yisrael or Kibbutz Avim? What's more important? So Avraham's dilemma was my dilemma. I'm sure other people as well. There's a paper going around. Do you mind passing it, David? Pass it. The other papers there. You gave them out, okay? Can you pass out the others? Can you pass it to the other side of the room? Where are the other papers? Can you pass it there? Thank you. One paper. We'll look at the papers in a minute. But first, let's discuss the mitzvah of what? Of Kibbutz Avim. What kind of great mitzvah it is to honor your parents.
Even when they're not alive.
Right, even when they're not alive, right? So which mitzvah is more important, honoring your parents or making Aliyah? So let's do some analysis here and see if we can come up with an answer. The mitzvah of Kibbutz Avim, one of the 10 Commandments, of course. And it's an amazing Gemara Yishalmi Peah. Godel Kibbutz Avim, Shedifa Kodesh Baruch Hu Yota Mechvodo. You hear? Kibbutz Avim is so great that God said it's even more important than honoring me. Yishalmi Peah Perik Aleph. Why? Because honoring God is a pasuk in Mishlei Gimel. Kabet es Hashem Mohainecha. You should honor Hashem from your wealth. Im yeshloch ata chayav. Vim lav ata patur. You have to honor Hashem from your wealth. If you have money, you're supposed to buy a nice esrog, a nice tefillin, right? Sefer Torah. If you have no money, you're potter. You're not supposed to spend more than 20% of your total assets on any positive mitzvah. So that's what it says about 20% is the maximum. But honoring parents, it says, Kabet savicho v'esimecha, afilo. Even if you have to go begging on your doorstep, you still have to honor your parents. So Yishalmi Peah points out that honoring parents is even more important than honoring God. Honoring God, the pasuk in Mishlei says, honor God from your wealth. If you have money, you're supposed to give tzedakah and buy what? Tefillin. But if you ain't got, you don't have to go begging to buy tefillin, you're patur. But when it comes to honoring your parents, the Talmud Yishalmi Peah says, even if you don't have, you're obligated to go begging if it's necessary to make sure that your parents are what? Are comfortable. So it looks like honoring parents is greater than honoring God. What? You're potter. You're not supposed to spend more than... Let's say the Talmud in Ksubas, page 50 says, if a pair of tefillin will set you back more than 20% of your total assets, are you supposed to buy that pair of tefillin, Rabbi Yaakov? You're potter. Pretty strange, right? You can borrow. If your lulav and esrog is going to cost you more than 20% of your total assets, you're potter. Because it says, Kabet es Hashem Mohainecha. Im yeshloch ata chayav. Im lav ata patur. But Kibbutz Avim doesn't say that. Even if a person has no money, he's obligated to do whatever it takes, even to go begging, to make sure his parents are what? Comfortable. So according to Shalmi Peah Perik Aleph, it looks like that honoring parents is even greater than honoring God. So what about making Aliyah? That's the question, right? And like David mentioned, honoring parents even after death, right? Remember, the Talmud tells us why the mitzvah of Kibbutz Avim is next to Shabbat in the 10 Commandments. Why the Torah put them together? When the two psukim in the Torah next door, there's a connection. So the answer is, Shabbat is a symbol of Olam Haba. Me'en Olam Haba Yom Shabbat Benucha. So even if your parents are no longer in this world, where are they in the Shabbos world? Olam Haba, you still have to honor them. So it's a mitzvah, keeps on giving. How do you honor a parents? By after death? So when you're alive, you honor them by taking them out to dinner, right? But if they're not alive, how do you honor them? Giving a shir in their name, saying Kaddish. So you're honoring them even after Mea V'Esrim. In the Chayadam says something amazing with Mordechai, that there's a way to honor parents even after death on a higher level. I'll say what he says, the Chayyim, in my words. How do you honor your parents in this world? You take them out to dinner. You take them to a Chinese restaurant, kosher, and 12 minutes later they're hungry again. Maybe 20 minutes, Chinese food, you get hungry again. So the hana is temporary. Doesn't last. But when you honor them in Olam Haba by giving a shir in their name or saying Kaddish, the hana is not like a Chinese meal. That hana, David, keeps on going and going and going. So honoring parents, we all feel guilty. We didn't honor our parents enough in our lifetime. We can make up for it. You study Torah, you give tzedakah, you say Kaddish, you're giving them hana that lasts forever, unlike a Chinese meal. And more than that, the Gemara in Kiddushin, the Gemara in Nida says that every human being has three parents. The Gemara in Kiddushin, 31, Gemara in Nida, that every human being has three parents. Who are the three parents? Mother, father, and Kodesh Baruch Hu, right? So each one contributes something. The mother and the father contribute the guf, and the Kodesh Baruch Hu contributes what? The neshama. So the Chafetz Chaim says something amazing. He said it's a bargain. 1 for 3. He says, if you honor God, you're also honoring your parents. That's what he says. So he says as follows. If you honor Hashem, how do you honor Hashem? By keeping Shabbos and eating kosher. You're also honoring your parents. Because it's a package deal. Every human being has three parents. One package. So by doing any mitzvah, by honoring God, by putting on tefillin, or eating kosher, you're also honoring what? Your human parents, because it's one package, right? God compares honoring Him to honoring your parents. So when you honor Hashem by keeping kosher and putting on tefillin, you're also what? Honoring God as well. So Yishuv Eretz Yisrael is a mitzvah like putting on tefillin. So when I made Aliya, it's like I put on tefillin. It's like honoring my parents, right? That's the question we have to deal with, right? But the Chafetz Chaim says that. When you honor Hashem by doing a mitzvah ben Adam Lamakim, you're also Mekayim Kibbut Avein. And the same thing is true in reverse, right? If you dishonor one of the three, you're dishonoring all, right? You dishonor a human parent, you're dishonoring a heavenly parent. And the vice versa. So we have this dilemma. According to Chafetz Chaim, when you do any mitzvah, you're honoring the divine parent, you're also honoring what? Your human parents as well. So living in Israel is a mitzvah, like putting on tefillin. So when I left for Israel, I was still honoring my parents, right? And more than that, the mitzvah of living in Israel, according to the Pischei Tshuva in Even Ezer, says that the mitzvah of living in Israel, even b'zman hazeh, shkula keneged kol ha-mitzvah shebetorah. The mitzvah of living in Israel, even b'zman hazeh, when there is no temple, equals to all the other mitzvahs in the Torah. Yishaftem ba'oretz, yishaftem ba. So the mitzvah to live in Israel is not just a regular mitzvah, but it's shkula keneged kol ha-mitzvah shebetorah, as the Sifri says and the Ramban, and the Pischei Tshuva and Even Ezra says, afilu b'zman hazeh. The mitzvah to live here is the greatest of all mitzvot. So I was right then, that Abraham was right that he left what? His parents, yes? What? So, if that's the case, what?
What about when you have a government that releases murders and terrorists?
So that's, we're going to deal with that, David.
Hire Arabs,
We're going to deal with that question.
that are terrorists that shoot and kill 150
Right.
people.
So does that affect the mitzvah of living in Israel or not, right?
Life is endangered by a government.
Right. Does that affect the mitzvah of living in Israel or not?
Yeah.
So if you take a look at the sheets that I passed around, I deal with that question. You must have ESP. The question is, what about a wicked government? Is there still a mitzvah to live here? Is the mitzvah of living in Israel still apply even when there's a wicked government? Is it still the greatest of all mitzvot? Is it? Let's take a look at our sheets. I think I deal with that. So we say that living in Israel is the greatest of all mitzvahs. And the Chafetz Chaim says when you honor God, you're also honoring your parents. So if that's the case, take a look at the source sheets. Source number 3. You see source number 3? The pasuk is that we read last week. Pasuk Lamed Bet. You see, Bereshis Yud Aleph, Pasuk Lamed Bet. V'yimei terach chomesh shanim matayim shana, v'yomas terach b'charan. Terach died in Haran, and then the Torah says, Lech lecha me'artzecha. So if you read the simple text, it says Abraham only left when his father and mother had what? Died. Is that true? No. Look at source number 3 in Rashi. See source number 3 in Rashi? Rabbi Yaakov, you have a paper? The Yomas Terach B'Charan says Rashi, Lacha sheyotza Avraham min Haran, u'bo Eretz Canaan, v'oyasham yotem mishishim shana. Rashi says it's not so. When Avraham left, Terach remained another 60 years alive in a nursing home, somewhere in Haran. And Rashi makes the whole cheshbon to prove that there's no way that Avraham left after Terach was what? Dead. No. Terach continued to live another 60 years in Haran. So Avraham left him while his parents were still very much alive. So now the question is, Rashi gives the whole cheshbon, V'lama higdim hakoseh mitota shel Terach litzoseh shel Avram. So if that's the case, why does the Torah write that Terach died and then Abraham what? Left when it wasn't so? Abraham left, Terach was still very much alive, so why kill him off at this stage? So Rashi says, you see that in the Rashi, source number 3? Shalei adova mefursam lakol. The Torah is engaged in a Watergate. I think it's called a cover-up. Shalei adova mefursam lakol. The Torah did not want to publicize the fact that Abraham left aged parents in Borough Park and made Aliya. Shh. V'yoimru, I'm reading Rashi, source 3, left column on top. V'loim yoimru, loikayim Avram kibbut aviv. What kind of son is he? Leaving aged parents where? In Englewood or Lakewood? Shenichi zokein v'holachlo. You leave old parents behind in Chutz La'aretz to make Aliyah? What kind of son are you? Lefikach karo met. Therefore the Torah says, let's say that he what? He died even though he didn't. So people shouldn't say that Avraham Avinu was a bad son and left aged parents behind. So the question is, if making Aliyah is a mitzvah like putting on tefillin, just like your parents cannot tell you don't put on tefillin, can they? So the parents cannot tell you don't make Aliyah. So why does the Torah have to engage in a cover-up? Avraham did the right thing. It's a mitzvah to make Aliyah, and by making Aliyah, he's honoring his parents. Remember, Chavetz Chaim told us, every time you do any mitzvah, you're honoring the divine parent, you're also honoring what? Human parents as well. So Avram did the right thing. So why is the Torah engaged in what? In a cover-up? That's the question we have to answer this afternoon. Look about the importance of living in Israel. Look at source number 2. See source number 2? David and Rashi. Chuzat Olam, we just read the parasha yesterday. V'sham Elohim lalahim. And there I will be for you for a God. Where? In Israel. Source number 2, Avol ben Yisrael hadar b'chutz la'aretz. But a Jewish person that lives where? In Chutz La'aretz, including Crown Heights. Kimi she'ein lo Elohai. You see that? A Jewish person that lives outside of Israel is like somebody, Mordechai, you have source number 2. We discussed it earlier, right? Isn't that amazing? So Avram did the right thing. So why does the Torah engage in what? In a cover-up. Look at source number 1. Source number 1. That's Parshas Bahar. Ani Hashem Elokeichem. Asher Tzeisi Eschem Yeretz Mitzrayim Los Es Lochem Es Eretz Canaan Lios Lochem Le'Elohim. So again, Rashi makes the same comment. Rashi source number 1. Lios Lochem Le'Elokim. Shekol Adar Be'eretz Yisrael Ani Loi Le'Elohim. Anyone who lives in Israel, I'm a God for him. V'chol hayotza mimena. And anyone that leaves Israel, even for Borough Park, it's like he worships idols. Wow. So if that's the case, why does the Torah have to cover up for Father Abraham? He did the right thing. Now to answer David's question, what about if the government and the people are wicked here? Does the mitzvah still apply? So Rav Soloveitchik points out, look at Pasuk Lamed Chet. See source number 1, Pasuk Lamed Ches. Ani Hashem Elokeichem, Asher Tzeisi Eschem Eretz Mitzrayim, Losais Lachem et Eretz Canaan. To give them the land of Canaan. Why doesn't he call it Pisgat Zev, Reb Mordechai? Why does the Torah keep referring to the land of Israel as the land of Canaan? That's Rav Soloveitchik's question. What's wrong with Pisgat Zev? To give them Pisgat Zev. Where do you live? Kiryat Moshe. Why do you have to keep calling it Eretz Canaan? Says Rav Soloveitchik, Canaan is the symbol of evil and corruption. Canaan is today like John Balkari or the abomination. It's a symbol of wickedness and evil and corruption. So the Torah keeps referring to the land of Israel as Eretz Canaan, David, to teach that even though the people and the government here are wicked, it does not change the mitzvah. The mitzvah is still in effect. You hear that? Yeah. Despite the Canaanite culture or the pagan culture, there's still a mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. It doesn't change the fact, and therefore the Torah keeps referring to Israel as Canaan, the symbol of wickedness and evil and corruption and immorality. That despite all of those things, the mitzvah to live here, what? Keeps on going and going and going. David, does that answer your question? See, I'm prepared. I didn't know you were going to ask me that question.
I'm from Canada,
but
so maybe Eretz Canaan meant, he really meant Canada.
Ah.
That's why I started
No.
saying Canada so long.
Canaan is, right? The symbol of evil. Afal Pikain, the mitzvah is Adayin what? Mamshich. So now, we have this dilemma. If Avraham did the right thing and I did the right thing, why is the Torah engaged in what? In a, what's it called? Watergate. Cover up. But it's amazing. Many people say that the mitzvah to live in Israel doesn't apply today. But the Pischei Tshuva, he is a posek, he lived about 200 years ago. Everybody accepts him. Ashkenazim, Charedim, Sfardim. And the Pischei Tshuva in Even Ezer Siman Ayin Hey says that the mitzvah to live in Israel, af bizman hazeh, shkula keneged kol ha-mitzvah shebetorah. Even today. So the question is, the last time I checked, Mr. Samuels, I looked in the Rambam Sefer HaMitzvah, I didn't see living in Israel counted as a mitzvah. If the Ramban and the Pischei Tshuva and all the other great superstars say that living in Israel is not just a mitzvah, but it's a super mitzvah, how come the Holy Rambam did not include it in his Sefer HaMitzvot? That's a blockbuster question, Chava. That's a blockbuster question.
What about the Ramban?
The Ramban, of course, did include it. But we have to deal why the Rambam did not include it. Stay tuned. But I want to tell you that if you look in Hilchat Shabbat, chapter 6 in the Rambam says something amazing. You know, we know Amir al-Akum Shvus. Just like I cannot write on Shabbat, I'm not allowed to tell a goy to write for me on Shabbat. You know that? Telling a non-Jew to do a malach on Shabbat is prohibited. The rabbis say it's prohibited. Can't do it. Just like I cannot write on Shabbat, I cannot tell a non-Jew to write. But the Rambam says something amazing. Hilchat Shabbat, chapter 6. If I want to write a contract to buy an apartment, where do you live? In Remote, right? Oh, Avraham lives in Remote. If you want to buy an apartment in Pisgat Zev, or where? Kiryat Moshe, the Rambam rules you're permitted on Shabbat to go to a Goyish lawyer and have him write up a contract for you on Shabbat to purchase an apartment in Neve Yaakov. That's no other mitzvah you can do that. You can't tell a goy to write for you on Shabbat. But Yishuv Eretz Yisrael is so powerful, says Rambam, that you're permitted to tell a non-Jew to write a contract for you on Shabbat. You can't do it yourself. But to tell a non-Jew to write a contract for you on Shabbat to buy an apartment, David, in Sharei Chesed. That's how important the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael is. So rules the Rambam. So that just begs the question of why the Holy Rambam does not what? counted in the Sefer HaMitzvot? So the Chazon Ish asked this question. And to answer this question, Mr. Samuels, he what? Asked another one. Because a Jew always answers a question with a question. To answer this question, the Chazon Ish, he was a great Zionist. You don't know that. He says as follows. Look at the Rambam's Hakdama to Sefer HaMitzvot. There the Rambam asks on himself. There's a pasuk in the Torah, Kedoshim Tiyu. There's a pasuk in the Torah, Kedoshim Tiyu. So how come I don't count that as a mitzvah? Says the Rambam. He's asking on himself. What does Kedoshim Tiyu mean? Be holy. So how come it's not counted in the Sefer HaMitzvot? So the Rambam says, in the Sefer HaMitzvot, I'm counting individual mitzvot, pratim. But something which is the end game, something that's kol Torah kula, I'm not counting. So as the Rambam says, I cannot count Kedoshim Tiyu as a mitzvah, because that's the purpose of any mitzvah, is to be holy. Every mitzvah you do, you add another dose of Kedusha. So I can't make Kedoshim Tiyu a mitzvah. That's the climax. That is the purpose of any mitzvah, Kedoshim Tiyu. And therefore, I don't count Kedoshim Tiyu as a mitzvah. That's what the Rambam says. It is Akdama to what? Sefer HaMitzvot. Says the holy Chazon Ish, the Rambam gave you guidelines. Take the football and run with it. The Rambam's telling you, I'm only counting pratim. But something which is kol Torah kula, like Kedoshim Tiyu, I'm not counting. Because that cannot be a mitzvah. That's greater than a mitzvah. That's the end game. So the Chazon Ish, the same reason why the Rambam doesn't count Yishuv Eretz Yisrael is the same reason he doesn't count what? Kedoshim Tiyu. The purpose of mitzvot is to attain Kedusha, Rabbi Yaakov. And the purpose of mitzvot is to do it where? In Eretz Yisrael. The Sifri says if you do a mitzvah in Lakewood, you're only practicing in the bullpen. You look up the Sifri, Deuteronomy 12, and Pashas Re'eh, the Sifri says that doing a mitzvah in Chutz La'aretz, you're only practicing. If you want to pitch in the big leagues, you got to come here. So the Chazon Ish says, therefore the Rambam does not count Yishuv Eretz Yisrael as a mitzvah. Not because it's less, Rabbi Avraham, because it's more. The Chazon Ish said this before Herzl. I don't know, after Herzl. I don't know when he said. But it's just amazing that Chazon Ish would say that Yishuv Eretz Yisrael is not counted by the Rambam as a mitzvah for the same reason he does not count Kedoshim Tiyu. It's not a mitzvah, it sums up the entire package. The purpose of mitzvot is Kedoshim Tiyu, and the purpose of mitzvot is to do it where? In Eretz Yisrael. So that just begs the question. If that's the case, why does the Torah engage in what? In a cover-up. If Avraham what? Did the right thing. Right? So let's take a look. So this problem is actually dealt with by the Achronim. Are children permitted to make Aliya despite their parents' objections? Or does fulfilling the mitzvah to honor one's parents take precedence over the mitzvah of what? Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Okay? So this question is discussed by the Chai Adam. The Chai Adam, in Chachmas Adam, he discusses this question. What about osik b'mitzvah potam min ha-mitzvah? If you're occupied of taking care of your parents, we have a klal, osik b'mitzvah potam min ha-mitzvah. Do I have a right, Rabbi Yaakov, to interrupt the mitzvah of honoring my parents to make Aliyah? What about the klal, osik b'mitzvah potam min ha-mitzvah? Right? We have to deal with that also. We have to deal with that question also, right? So the Chai Adam, who's Mechit on the Vilna Gaon, by the way, in Chachmas Adam, he is done this shaila. Parents object Don't leave Borough Park. Stay with me in Borough Park. I mean, where? Lakewood. I don't want you to go to Pisgat Zev. Does the kid have to listen or not? So, the Chai Adam brings the Gemara in Kiddushin, page 31. The Gemara in Kiddushin, page 31, has this shaila. Rav Ami went to his Rebbe, Rabbi Yochanan, who was the chief rabbi, David of Tiberias. And he said as follows: I have a sick mother in Babylon, Long Island. Babylon. Can I leave Tiberias, leave your yeshiva, to go take care of her? If you look at the Gemara in Kiddushin 31, very interesting. Rabbi Yochanan does not answer him. He comes back again. He says, I have a sick mother in Babylon, and she wants that I should come and see her. Can I leave Eretz Yisrael to go visit her? So you look at the Gemara there, Kiddushin 31b. Rav Yochanan told him, you can go, but you have to buy a round-trip ticket. Kiddushin 31b. 1 minute. Let me talk and then we'll... He says you can go visit her, make sure that she's taken care of, but you have to buy a round-trip ticket, you have to come back. So this is what Rabbi Yochanan told his student Rav Ami in the Gemara in Kiddushin. Because the mitzvah of kibbud aveim can be done through a shliach. Make sure that she has a good Filipino or whatever that she's taken care of, and then you have to return to Eretz Yisrael. This is what Rabbi Yochanan told his student. Okay? So we see from here that what? That of course you can go visit them, but they cannot tell you that you should remain with them permanently in Chutz La'aretz. You have to make sure they're taken care of. You hire someone to take care of them. And we know a person's agent is like what? Himself. Shlucha she'adam kemoto. So we see that kibbud aveim can be done through what? Through a shliach. But can the parents say, no, I want only you. Yiddish Lillian, only you. I don't want no Filipino. I want you to stay with me in Staten Island. Can they do that? So the mayor of Rottenburg, Shuvas Maram, the Rebbe of the Rosh, he's done this question. The Rebbe of the Rosh is done this question. In Shuvas Maram ben Baruch, Yiddish from Mordechai, he asked this question. And he says clearly that the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael takes precedence over the mitzvah of kibbud aveim. So says Rabbi Rottenberg in Tshuva number 79. You hear this? That the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, therefore, it's the honor of God. And the honor of God takes precedence over the honor due to one's parents. Just like your parents cannot tell you, eat a ham sandwich, or just like your parents cannot tell you, Reb Yaakov, don't sit in the sukkah. Your parents say, I don't want you to sit in the sukkah, the sukkahs. Can they tell you that? No. Because they also have to honor God. They also have to sit in the sukkah. So just like your parents cannot tell you, don't sit in the sukkah, says the Maram, the parents cannot tell you, don't sit where? In Pisgat Zev. Psak the Maram, the Rebbe of the Rosh. Interesting, right? The Tshuvas Mabit also has this question, and he says that the child doesn't have to listen to the parent, because the parents, no less than the kid, is also bound to pay honor to God, and that parents should also make Aliyah. And both of them should make Aliyah, the parents and the kid. So just like the parent cannot tell you don't shake a lulav and esrog, they can't tell you that. Because they also have to shake a lulav and esrog. So parents also have to make Aliyah. So if they have to make Aliyah, that's honoring God. So if they have to do it, they cannot tell you not to do it. And according to Chofetz Chaim, we said that if you put on tefillin and sit in the sukkah, even though they object, you're still honoring them, remember? Because you're honoring God, you're honoring them, even though they don't, they object. Right? Now, the Panim Yafot says something amazing, Rav Mordechai. The Panim Yafot says something amazing. Naomi's sons were punished. Remember the book of Ruth? Naomi's sons were punished. Why were they punished? Because they left Eretz Yisrael, because their father told them to leave Israel. Elimelech and Naomi packed up their bags and they moved to Las Vegas. To Moab. And the kids wanted to honor their parents. Their parents says, we have to leave Eretz Yisrael. We have to go, what? To Chutz La'aretz. So they honored their parents and they were punished that they died. The two sons, Machlon and Chilion, the two sons of Naomi and Elimelech, they left the land of Israel because their parents ordered them to leave the land of Israel, and yet they were punished so severely, Moshe. So we see that what? That just like your parents cannot tell you don't sit in the sukkah or leave the sukkah, they cannot tell you what? Leave Eretz Yisrael. And that's why the sons of Naomi were punished. They left Eretz Yisrael because their parents ordered them to. Af al pi kain, they were punished severely. Very interesting, right? So now we have to get back to the question. If that's the case, why does the Torah engage in what? In a cover-up of Avraham. He did the right thing. So the Medrash says something amazing. It says, Lech lecha. Go for yourself. What's the word lecha? So the Medrash says, Avraham was afraid to go. If I go, it'll be a chil Hashem. Because the Jewish press is going to write, the great tzaddik Avraham leaves aged parents in a nursing home in Borough Park and makes Aliya. God, I'll be desecrating your name. Huh? So God said, don't worry, Abraham, I'll cover up for you. We'll say your parents died, even though they didn't. The Jewish press will write a headline, Abraham's aged parents dead in Borough Park, and then Abraham made Aliya, even though it wasn't true. So the question is, why you need to cover up, right? So the answer that the Chai Adam gives is because when Avraham made Aliya, the land did not attain its Kedusha yet. If you look in Tosfot Gittin, Dav Bet, when did Eretz Yisrael attain its full Kedusha? Only when Yeshua ben Nun and the IDF conquered the land. Don't tell this to John Balkari. Hope he's not listening. Oh, Tosfos in Gittin, Dav Bet says that Eretz Yisrael only attained its exalted status of Kedusha only after Yeshua ben Nun and the IDF conquered the land. So therefore, in the days of Avraham, the land of Israel didn't have that Kedusha yet. So where is he going? There's no mitzvah yet. So therefore, to prevent the Chil Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, let's engage in a cover-up. Okay? Because the land of Israel was not yet Eretz Yisrael. The land of Israel only attained its full Kedusha after Yeshua ben Nun and the Israelis settled the land. Ooh, said a dirty word again. Settler. Settler, don't say that word. Right? It's an upside-down world. They murder a 3-month-old baby, and my precious student, 22-year-old girl, ran her down, and they have a day of rage. She's my student. Yemima.
And they didn't say a word of
Yemima bas Avraham v'Sarah Shem Yikam Damo. They murder our children, and they have a day of rage. Sick. We should have a day of rage. It's an upside-down world, unfortunately.
And we're having a peace rally in Tel Aviv for Rabbi.
Oh, a peace rally, right?
We should really like...
All right. Right. Olam hafuch ra'iti. It's an upside-down, mad world. Who said that? It's a mad world. Just look at the Israeli government. But that does not cancel the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Right? That's the point. It doesn't cancel the mitzvah.
You live here, but you got to have a good gun.
Right?
That's all.
Yeah.
You don't have a good gun.
Yeah. Unfortunately, right? So anyway, we see that the land of Israel was sanctified through the kibush el milchama of Yeshua ben Nun and the IDF army. Tosfos in Gittin Dav Bet. So our holy IDF soldiers, they sanctified the land. Isn't that incredible? 1 second, Rivka. Rav Kook Zatzal said that the IDF uniform has the Kiddusha of the big day Kahuna. That's what Rav Kook said. And there's a story that right after the 6-Day War, Rav Kook was Musad Kiddushin to one of his Talmidim. Musad Rav Kook, the son, who passed away the 6-Day War. Rav Kook, the son, was the head of Musad Rav Kook, the son of the chief rabbi, the second Rav Kook, Tzvi Yehuda Kook. And the whole time, so the Chassan was wearing his IDF uniform. And the whole time, he kept caressing the uniform. So after the ceremony, the Chassan asked him, Rabbi, why were you caressing my uniform the whole time? He says, I wanted to caress the big day kahuna. Okay?
Ari 11 said the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. You got a question, Rivka, I think?
I wanted to just ask, in Avraham's day, it was covered, the Torah had not been given yet.
Right.
So Kibbutz Avraham was, maybe it was just in general that people practiced it, but
Right.
there was no mitzvah.
There's no mitzvah to honor parents, you're saying.
Was there?
But there's no mitzvah to live in Israel.
Right, neither one.
Okay. So I ask you an interesting question. The Rambam tells us that the Noachide code was given to whom? Adam. How come it's not called the Adamite code? Look at the Rambam in Hilchas Malachim. The Noachide religion was given to Adam. So how come it's not called the Adamite religion? The Rambam says because Adam was a complete washout. Get it? Flooded. Who was the new Adam? Noach. So it's called the Noachide religion because he was the second Adam. The first Adam was a total failure, all washed out. Noach was the new Adam. So it's called the Noachide religion. So Rivka's asking a very interesting question. The Noachide religion, keep the 7, go to heaven. The last time I checked, honoring your parents was not on the list. Last time I checked. So Rivka, I know what you're asking. It's a bomb question. What do you want from Ham? He saw his father uncovered and he dishonored him. But the Noachites don't have a mitzvah to honor their parents. Do they? So let's clear up a fallacy here. So Tosfot, in Tractate Sanhedrin, page 58, and the Maharsha both say the 7 are those, they're all negatives. Don't blaspheme, don't murder, don't rape, don't eat blood from a living animal. They're all don'ts. The 7 are all don'ts, and for that, the Noachite, if he breaks any of those 7, David, he gets capital punishment. But Tosfot and the Marshal point out that any logical mitzvah ben Adam lechavero, the Noachites have. Any mitzvah which is logical and sensible. Hakora tatov, your parents brought you into the world. They stayed up with you when you were sick. You had the mumps and the measles. They stayed up with you. It's common decency and logic that you should honor them. So, according to Tosfot and the Maharsha, Kibbutz Avraham is also part of the Noachide religion. The 7 stand out, they're all don'ts, and the punishment is a capital punishment. But honoring parents and giving tzedakah, even though it's not on the 7, is still part of Noachide religion because it's a mitzvah sichlius. How do you say that in English? It's logical, it's bein odom v'chavero, sensible, and therefore a Noachide also has the mitzvah of what? Of honoring his parents. Therefore Ham was punished for dishonoring his parents. That's why Noach cursed them, right? So that's something that we have to clear up. The 7 are the don'ts and the punishment. But any mitzvah like honoring parents or giving tzedakah, which is logical and sensible, and any person with a brain in his head knows that it's the right thing to do, Noachites from Mordechai also have that mitzvah. So therefore Avraham had kibbutz av, but as far as Yisrael Yisrael, that's the point that Tosfos points out, Yisrael Yisrael didn't have the Kedusha yet. So people will understand, where's he going? Where's he going out to Pisgat Zev in that barren land? It doesn't have Kedusha yet, leaving aged parents. So therefore, the Torah has to engage in a cover-up. Because Israel didn't have its Kedusha yet. But we, Baruch Hashem, are living when Israel has its Kedusha, and we have to know that living in Eretz Yisrael is the greatest of all mitzvot. Now, the Poskim Adan, what about women, Rabbi Mordechai? Do women also have the mitzvah to live in Israel? Women are potter from living in a sukkah. Why? Why? Because it's a mitzvah to say Shezman Grama. What about living in Pisgat Zev? Are women potter? No, they're chayiv. Why? It's not like living in a sukkah. Living in a sukkah is a time-bound mitzvah, only 7 days out of the year. So women are exempt for time-bound mitzvahs. But living in Pisgat Zev, I mean in Kiyat Moshe, I mean in Rechavia, that's 24/7. It's a mitzvah to say Shelo Yasman Grama. And therefore women are just as obligated to live in Israel as what? As men, because it's not time-bound like living in a sukkah or shaking a lulav. So women have the same mitzvah as men to do the mitzvah of what? Of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, right? Now, the Shulchan Aruch says clearly that if parents tell a kid, I don't want you to study in this yeshiva, does the kid have to listen? Yes. No. You look in the Yeridea Siman Reish Mem, Shulchan Aruch says that if parents tell a kid, I don't want you to study in this yeshiva, I want you to study in another yeshiva, the kid is what? Not obligated to listen. Because the kid can say, I can steig better in this yeshiva. It's like the parents can't say, don't put on tefillin. I want to study in this yeshiva. I feel that I could accomplish more in this yeshiva. So the parents cannot say, no, I want you to go to another yeshiva, because studying Torah is a great mitzvah. And just like the parents cannot tell you, don't put on tefillin, they can't tell you, don't study in this yeshiva, or don't study in any yeshiva. They cannot tell you that. Okay? Now what about if a parent says, I don't want you to daven in this shul. I don't like the young Israel. Come with me to the shtibel. I command you, come with me to the shtibel. Don't go to the young Israel. Does the kid have to listen? No. Pischei Tshuva says clearly that whatever the parents say, a kid, a son, a daughter can daven in whichever shul he feels he will be able to pray with the greatest kavanah. So therefore, if the parents say to the girl, don't go to this seminary, I don't want you to go, the daughter is not obligated to listen to what? Or the son, not just in Israel. I don't want you to go to this yeshiva, I don't want you to go to the seminary, David. The parent, the kid, the son or the daughter is not obligated to listen. What about getting married, David? Look at the Yeridea Siman Reish Mem, right? A boy and a girl, both Jewish, they want to get married. And the parents say, I refuse. Don't marry him, don't marry her. Does the son and the daughter have to listen? No. Very good, Rivka. Yeridea Siman Reish Mem, clearly, if a boy and a girl, they love each other and they're both kosher Jews, even though the parents object, the halacha is that, what? They can get married anyway. No, they have to do it in a nice way. You can't say, you have to, in a respectful manner, you have to say, I'm sorry, Mommy, Daddy, I'm very sorry, but just like you cannot tell me, don't sit in a sukkah, just like you cannot tell me, don't shake a lulav and esrik, you cannot tell me I can't marry this one. If he's a kosher Jew, then parents cannot tell you not to marry. You have to do it with respect, of course. Okay? So anyway, we have to cherish the fact that we live in Eretz Yisrael. The Rambam in Hilchos Malachim says that anyone who walks Dalit Amot in Eretz Yisrael gains another level of Olam Haba. Every 4 steps that you walk in Israel, moving on up, Olam Haba is endless. Olam Haba is endless. What is Olam Haba, Mr. Samuels? What is life after death? It's God's mind. So just like God is endless, life after death is endless. So every 4 steps you take in Israel, says Rambam in Hilchos Malachim, you gain another level of Olam Haba. We keep moving on up. So therefore, you see a jogger running, say mitzvah, nacha mitzvah. You don't realize that, right? Every 4 steps you take in Eretz Yisrael is what? Is another level of Olam Haba. Why does the Rambam put the laws of living in Israel? He doesn't count it as a mitzvah, as we explained, not because it's less, but because what? It's more. But he puts the laws of living in Israel in Hilchos Malachim, in the laws of kings. Why does he put the law of living in Israel? He doesn't count as a mitzvah, but he says the mitzvah of living in Israel is shkula keneged kol mitzvot. Why does he put it in Hilchos Malachim? Because living in Israel, you're living in the palace of the king. The law of the king. By living in Israel, we are living in the king's palace. It's a schus we have to live in the king's palace, right? Let's appreciate that, right? The whole world belongs to God, right? But you can't compare the king's garage to the king's palace, right? So let's appreciate the fact that we live in Eretz Yisrael. So the bottom line is, when I left my parents, I was not dishonoring them. They gave me the blessing. Glad about that. But I was honoring them, because whenever Chafetz Chaim's chidush is, whenever you do any mitzvah between you and God, you're honoring the divine parent. It's automatically what? Rabbi Yaakov honoring the human parent, because it's a package deal. God says there are 3 parents. Gemara in Kedushin, Gemara in Nida, that every human being has 3 parents: God, Father, and Mother. So when you honor one, you honor the other. When you dishonor one, you dishonor the other too. So it's a double-edged sword, double whammy. So whenever a person doesn't eat kosher or doesn't keep Shabbos, who's he dishonoring? Not just his divine parent, but also his human parent. And the other way around, a person does keep Shabbos and keep kosher, he's honoring his divine parent and his human parent even after death. It's a gewaltige chidush. We all feel guilty we didn't honor our parents, right? You don't have to feel guilty. It keeps on going and going. Rabbi Yaakov, every time you put on tefillin, every time you study Torah, you're honoring your parents in Olam Haba. Who said that? Not me, the Chafetz Chaim. Well, even if they didn't. But now they know the truth. And the dead are aware of the living. The Ramban says the family bond is not broken with death. So every time you put on tefillin and eat kosher, you're honoring your parents in Olam Haba. They're getting fargenugin. Fargenigin? How do you say that? Not like a Chinese meal that wears off in 12 minutes or 18 minutes. But the anah you give them by observing the Torah is an eternal anah. And we have to know that, because mitzvah is tzrichot kavana. Your question, Rivka, go ahead.
Yes, so I wanted to
Fire away, I'm all ears.
to go back to number 3.
Number 3.
Why, yes, why
Yeah.
don't we know anything about Abraham's mother?
Abraham's Mrs. Terach? Mrs. Terach. Okay? Because the Torah is not a history book. The Torah is only God's authorized manual for living in the year 2014. So I guess that his mother didn't have any message for us. I don't know. But that's a good question you're asking. The Torah only tells me what I need to know for the here and now. Very interesting. To answer your question, Rivka, I'll ask another. When the Jews were wandering in the Midbar, the Torah tells us the first year, and then flashes forward to what? The 40th year. So the Ramban asked, and Rashi, what about the 39 years? Torah tells the book of Amidbar, check it out. It begins with the first year, and then flash forward to what? 40. What about the 39 years? It was important for them, not for me. The Torah only writes what I need to know for today. So the first year and the final year has lessons for me today. But the 39 years in between has nothing to say to me. And the Torah is not ancient history. So therefore, what they did during those 39 years in the Midbar does not concern me. The Gemara Megillah says there were millions of Nevi'im, Mr. Samuels, millions. How come only 48 are recorded? Those millions of Nevi'im, they spoke for their time. I don't care. History. The 48 that are recorded, says the Gemara Megillah, speak to me today. We say we have no prophets today? It's uncanny. Anytime you read the Haftorah, you'll see how it talks about current events. We have prophets today. Isaiah, Yirmiyahu, right? Yoel, all those prophets, Micha, Yecheskel, they speak to us. Therefore, they're in the book. It's not ancient history. The millions of prophets are ancient history. It doesn't concern me. But the 48 Nevi'im in Tanakh, Rav Mordechai, speak to me. And it's amazing how if you take a look at the Torah, you don't have to buy the Jerusalem Post. You'll see how the Navi from 2,800 years ago is speaking to what? Today. It's unbelievable. Any other questions or comments? David, I think you had a question, no? You forgot your question. Oh. Yes? Fire away. Go ahead. Rabbi Yaakov, what? Right. Right. Oh, beautiful. Oh, Rabbi Yaakov. In the middle of Shiva, he lets you get up in Eretz Yisrael. So if you can, so that's a, right? Yishuv Etzro is so unique that you can, in the middle of Shiva, you can tell someone, or do it yourself, or even tell a non-Jew to write a contract to buy an apartment in Israel, which you're not allowed to tell a non-Jew to do right for you. But when it comes to living in Israel, the halacha makes an exception. That's how awesome is the great mitzvah of living where? In Rehavia. I mean Eretz Yisrael. Go ahead.
What about the Satmar Hasidim and these people that say they hold that until the Mashiach comes,
right?
Israel's not a mitzvah?
Well, don't confuse me with the facts. Who said that? Don't confuse me with the facts. But the Pischei Tshuva, a posik from 400 years ago, is accepted by all Hasidim. How could they ignore Simin, Ayin Hey, and Even Ezer? The Pischei Tshuva says that living in Israel, Af Bizman Hazeh, Shkula Keneged Kol HaMitzvah Shebetorah. How does the Satmar learn the Pischei Tshuva? And they accept him in all other aspects of law. So how do they ignore him in the Even Ezer, Simin, Ayin Hey? Where living in Israel is the greatest of all mitzvot, Afilu Bizman Hazeh, he says, and he lived 200 years ago. They follow Pischei Tshuva. Everybody does.
But how about those who don't follow that it's a mitzvah to be in the army? When it's a Mechemet mitzvah?
Mechemet mitzvah. The Rambam says clearly, Mechemet mitzvah is Ezrat Yisrael Miyatzah Shaboy Aleim. We are currently involved in Mechemet. The Lubavitcher Rebbe said, Mr. Samuels, that anyone who joins the IDF is engaged in Mechemet mitzvah 24/7. I think it was a Haredi rabbi, Lubavitcher Rebbe. Anyone who joins the IDF is doing Mechemet mitzvah 24/7. He's protecting the people of Israel in the land of Israel from Abu Mamzer. That's classic Mechemet mitzvah. So those holy soldiers are engaged in a mitzvah 24/7. And we should appreciate Hakarat HaTov, that they're risking their lives for us. Could one Jew study Torah for 5 minutes if they were not risking their lives for us? Where's the Hakarat HaTov? Right? Thank you very much. Todah.